الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. The Sahabi that we have with us today is a Sahabi that I'm pretty sure most of you have heard his name, but you only know one thing about him. It's kind of interesting, right? And the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they all have unique stories. And then, obviously the Tabi'un, Taba Tabi'un, and others from the Salaf al-Salihin that have given us great benefit in our Iman and an example, a Qudwa, role models for us and so on. So it's very sad when somebody knows just the name but doesn't know the rest of the story and the benefit that we could derive from it. So I decided to speak about the Sahabi. His name is Ukasha. And before we start, talking about the mispronunciation here, it's actually come both with the shadda on the kaf and without the shadda. So you could say Ukasha or Ukasha. Both are correct. And ulama have given both spellings and so on in the classic books of Tariq. Ukasha radiallahu anhu, Ukasha bin Mihsan, he's famous from the hadith about the 70,000 that will enter Jannah. So inshallah, most of you are people of knowledge and tullab ilm, and you sit in durus and you watch Islamic videos. So you've heard the hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I'm going to summarize from the hadith just because this is the most famous thing about him, but that's not the point of the dars tonight. But in the hadith that's reported in al-Bukhari, so it's a sahih hadith, and it's reported in Muslim, in the Musnad Imam Ahmad and other kutub of hadith as well. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma and other Sahaba report, he saw, and ulama have said this was during the Isra al-Mi'raj, and others have given different opinions, the different nations of the different prophets. And he saw some of them where it was just a single prophet with a single follower, some with 2 followers, some with 3, and some with no followers. And that's a very important part of the hadith that people miss, that even though those are prophets of Allah, and they were sent to nations with miracles and signs, and sometimes nobody followed them. But does that mean they failed? No. They were successful. They will enter Jannah. And they are successful. Why? Because they fulfilled the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They took that message to the people. They kept true to the hudud, to the boundaries that Allah had set. So they were successful. Sometimes people think, if we don't get a big following, we're not successful. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised the ranks of certain anbiya like Musa alayhi salam and Isa alayhi salam and Rasulullah Muhammad alayhi salatu salam with big nations. But every prophet that was sent was successful. Here Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw a huge ummah, a huge nation from the believers at the horizon. And when he asked, is this my nation? He was told, no, this is bin Israel, as the nation of Musa alayhi salam. And then he was shown his ummah, huge number. This ummah, alhamdulillah, by the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our ummah, the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allah has blessed us that we have huge numbers. And he saw this huge number and he said, this is your ummah. In another hadith, just so you can benefit, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, and this hadith is a Tirmidhi, it's a Hasan, it's a reliable hadith. He said that Jannah has rows, huge rows. We're not talking about like rows, and it's huge, right? And he said all of Jannah will have 120 rows, right? How many billions are in each row? Allah knows best. But he said 120 rows, 80 of them will be for my ummah. So that means the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be a majority in Jannah. Yes, the people from the nations before us, like bin Israel, and before them in the nation of Ibrahim alayhi salam and Nuh alayhi salam, the believers from them, they are Muslim, they will be in Jannah, they're people of Tawheed. But this ummah, the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and even if you look today, alhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah, we have around 2 billion Muslims in the world today. And we're the last nation, so till the day of judgment, how many ever believers come will be from our ummah, will be in the Jannah. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was shown 70,000 of them and said these 70,000 will enter Jannah without hisab. بدون hisab, without any questioning, without judgment. And this is a great thing. Each one of us, when we hear this, make dua, Allah make us from them. Because these, imagine on the day of judgment. And the day of judgment is something very harsh. It's not a fun trip. Yani, segments are 1,000 years, segments are 50,000 years. Imagine your life. If you were just told to stand in a corner for 10 days without moving, that would be like torture. That'd be human rights violations and all that, right? But imagine when you're standing with that stress of the day of judgment, the sun on your head, people sweating, hardships for 1,000 years. We can't even imagine. In this dunya, we can't imagine. Right? So the day of judgment is something very harsh. So if you can be from those that will enter Jannah with no hisab, may Allah make us from them. Right? So the 70,000 will enter Jannah without hisab. Now, before I go further, I know a lot of us might feel like, okay, well, what are my odds? Like the JWs, Jehovah's Witnesses, they have this thing, only 1,000 something or some small number are going to enter Jannah. I asked one of them, well, what are your odds? Because, and that would mean it would be difficult. But Allah is so merciful. The hadith in the Musnad Imam Ahmad, in reliable hadith, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he heard about this, he asked Allah to increase it for his ummah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was always concerned about the ummah. He was always concerned about us. He said, oh Allah, increase it. So Allah said, with every 1,000, I will enter another 70,000 with no hisab. So 70,000, the original. But every 1,000 of them will have another 70,000 with them. That will enter without hisab. So now our chances are getting better. And we ask Allah for His mercy. We don't expect to enter Jannah. We never did anything worth it. But it's the mercy of Allah. And Allah is that merciful. Right? So Allah, through His mercy, in this narration said, with every 1,000, another 70,000. How many is that? 4.9 million. No, I didn't do the math in my head. I looked it up at home. And then you got the original 70,000, right? So 4.97. Yeah? And with it, 3 handfuls from the handfuls of Rabbul Alameen. How? Allah, as befits His Majesty. We believe in it as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. So we should have that hope that we are from them. Now when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this, in one of the narrations, he left and the Sahaba started to discuss. Who are they? Because they wanted to be from them. Some of them started saying that these are people that have never done shirk. Some of the Sahaba said they're from our children that were born in Islam. Because they, obviously, many of the Sahaba before Islam used to worship idols. Some of them were Christians, some of them were Jews, some of them other, Salman al-Farisi went through every different flavor and so on until Allah guided into Islam. So they thought maybe because we have done shirk at a point that we will not be from these 70,000. Right? But our children that are born in Islam that have never done shirk, they will be from them. Others discussed different things. Some of them said it will be us because we are the ones that Allah chose to be the Sahaba. Yeah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he came out and he told them, what are you discussing? He asked them and they told him. So he gave them the sifat, the characteristics of these 70,000. Now pay attention, because if you want to be from them, then we want to bring those into our life. And before I mention them, they're not, the things that they stay away from are not necessarily things that are haram. Haram is haram, right? That's big. But some things that may be permissible, but the people of a very high tawakkul, very high yaqeen, very high reliance on Allah and firm belief, then they go above and beyond. So the first thing he said about them, that they don't ask for ruqya. Now ruqya, there is different. Ibn al-Qayyim has an amazing explanation of this hadith, right? I'm not going to, again the point is Ukasha radiallahu anhu, not the hadith, but because he's famous from this hadith, I'm just explaining it a little bit. Right? Regarding ruqya, it is permissible as long as it's done within the confines or the boundaries of the Quran and Sunnah. And some people, they make up ruqya from bid'ah. Like some of them, they start making ta'weed and they put weird letters and numbers and jumbled up. I've opened up some of these myself, and there is drawings in them, and there are letter Quran written backwards and all these kinds. You can check them online. Na'udhu billah. So that can be shirk or bid'ah or whatever level, depending and so on. And some people make up ruqya. They say, oh, if you want to get married or if you want to get somebody divorced, then you say this and this. Where did they get this from? A lot of that is in the end magic. When they cause problems between husband and wife by recite this and plant this and put this in a well, this is magic, haram, shirk, kufr. And they call it ruqya. No. So it can lead to a level of being kufr. Or it can be a bid'ah, meaning they innovate ways that are not in the Quran, that is not in the Sunnah, that is not from the Quran, that is not from the Sahaba, that is not from the Salaf al-Salihin. So it can reach a level of bid'ah. Or it could be mubah, it could be permissible. As many of the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, they did ruqya, and there were those that used it. So ruqya from the Quran and Sunnah is nothing wrong with it. So I don't want this hadith to seem like as if something is wrong. Some people, if somebody offers to read Quran on you, nothing wrong with that, right? Some people may need it, but the people of high tawakkul, that are of very high reliance on Allah, they make ruqya on themselves. Meaning they read Quran on themselves. They don't go to other people and say, read Quran on me, make ruqya on me. Even if it's permissible within the Quran and Sunnah, but because they have that connection with Allah, they do it themselves. And that is the high level. That's what these people do. Yes, they read adhkar on themselves, they read the Quran on themselves. The Rasul ﷺ used to do it. But they do it on themselves because they know they have the connection with Allah, that Allah, even if we're sinful, even if we're not awliya, all of us, but Allah is so merciful and Allah is so loving with each one of us that if we read the ruqya on ourselves, Allah can cure us. But some people, that tawakkul is a little bit broken, so then they keep going, oh no, this guy's very pious, read on me, this guy, right? Now again, I'm not saying it's haram, it's permissible, but there's a higher level, and these are the people of that higher level. And they don't believe in omens. Now with omens, there are, again, it can lead to a level of shirk. Oh, a black cat crosses your way, then this is bad luck. Or don't go under a ladder or something, right? In America, it's such a funny thing, When you talk about Allah and you talk about Quran, you talk about miracles of the Prophet ﷺ, they tell us, oh, you're backwards, you're superstitious, you're this, you're that, right? You go to any building, they don't have a 13th floor. Go check it next time. In America, the majority of the buildings, they don't have a 13th floor. Why? It's bad luck. All these engineers and architects and all this, and they still believe in this stupidity. Yeah. Oh no, don't break a mirror. You get 7 years of, I don't know, whatever, some bid'ah stuff, right? So those kind of omen, they can lead to shirk. And we definitely don't believe in that stuff. But some people have, not to that level, because like I said, palm reading and oh, you're a Sagittarius, so if you go out on this day, it's going to be bad luck. That's shirk. Obviously, that's horrible. But some people have others, oh man, if I see this person in the morning, then it's a good day. But if I see this person, it's a bad day. No. We don't, oh man, I have a bad day. I saw this guy this morning. It's because of him. No. We don't believe in these things. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, being an optimist, being somebody who's always optimistic, he told us to take the good fa'al. And that's something I described during the seerah durus and so on, which is to take a good sign, yes, but not bad. Meaning if you're going down a path and you're worried and you meet somebody and his name is Sa'id, which means happy or something like this, and you say, it's a good sign, alhamdulillah. That's good. Rasulullah did it and that's permissible. But to be like, I met somebody, oh man, this guy, he's manus, he's whatever, he's bad luck. No. Right? They don't believe in these things. This is the people of a high tawakkul. And they don't do branding or colorization with fire. Now that Ibn al-Qayyim mentions up to 4 categories in that. One that is haram, one that is makruh, one that is mubah, and one that is good. Now, Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiyallahu anhu, for example, when he was injured and he was bleeding, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered the wound to be cauterized with fire to stop the bleeding. So that means when you have a medical need for it, nothing wrong with it. In fact, it can be good, because if you're going to bleed out, and that's the only way to stop the bleeding, great, right? But there is also the type that has to do with superstition, and some of the wudu and all that nonsense that they have, they use branding and colorization for magic and for superstition. That is shirk, right? So now there is the good, and then there is extreme haram. Then there is where people sometimes do it unnecessarily, but they feel that there is a medical benefit to it, right? Even though it's not needed, in the sense it's not like you're bleeding, but they feel like if you burn this spot in this way, then it's going to give you this whatever medical benefit. This is makruh. This is disliked, because there is no need for it in reality. Yeah? And then there is what is done without necessity, without harm, meaning sometimes people do it for fashion. Nowadays there's people brand their college whatever insignias, and that's also not permissible. Yeah? So people that use it only when it's medically necessary, like the hadith of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh radiyallahu anhu, nothing wrong with that. In fact, it can be good, because it could save your life. Other than that, whether it's mubah or makruh or haram, whatever level it be, to leave it away. Yeah? And these are those people. And the last sifa, the last quality from the sifat of these people, they are mutawakkilun. They put their tawakkul on Allah. Now tawakkul is a bab in itself. It's a chapter in itself, right? Most people misunderstand this concept. There's extremes in it, but most people that I meet misunderstand. One is where they feel there is no tawakkul. Even if they don't say it. I'm not talking about kuffar, forget kuffar. I'm talking about from the ummah. Where they have totally left this concept. Everything is, I'm going to map it out. And the reality is, in the end, everything is in the hands of Allah. That's the reality, right? But most people today have left this concept. You tell somebody, "Akhi, let's go for Umrah, let's go for Hajj." Brother, I don't have money. Brother, you just bought a new car, you got 4 TVs in your house, you got a second car and a third, and your bank account has multiple zeros in front of that, whatever number. How do you not have money? No, brother, you don't understand. What if I lose my job? What if? Khalas, ya akhi. Hajj is fard on you, go. Umrah is there, go. Sadaqah is there, give. Tawakkal on Allah. Yeah. So this is one extreme, and I would say a big number of our ummah, if not majority, fall into this, where they say we have tawakkul, but actually they have no tawakkul. Right? The other extreme, which is less but still there in the ummah, which is where they misunderstand tawakkul to mean not doing anything. Brother, I really want kids. Let's get married. No, brother. Tawakkul. What? You don't believe Allah can bring the child from the sky? Yes, of course Allah can. That's not the sunnah. Isa alayhi salam was born without a father. Adam alayhi salam was born without a father or mother. Hawa alayhi salam born without a father. Yes, Allah can do it. Allah is qadir. But that's not the way. Tawakkul here is you get married, you follow the means, then if Allah gives you, Allah gives you. Many people get married, they don't have kids. Yeah. So kids are from Allah, but you have to take that path. Brother, I'm really struggling, I need money. Khalas, may Allah make it easy for you, brother. You want to get a job? No, brother, I have very strong tawakkul. I'm going to sit in the masjid, money will fall from the sky. Brother, you're begging. That's not tawakkul, You're begging. And Rasulullah forbid us to beg, especially when you don't have a necessity. Huh? That's not tawakkul. Go out, work. Strive, struggle, you're a man. That's what you were born to do. Right? And then put tawakkul on Allah. Right? You go out to work and they tell you, you can't have a beard, you can't make salah, you can't do this, you can't do that, you have to use riba. And you say, no, Allah made that haram. And they say, well, how are you going to get a job? Khalas, this is the Sharia, tawakkaltu ala Allah. Right? Okay, that makes sense. But I'm going to go out and work. But not that I'm sitting in the masjid outside the parking lot, Allah, 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 Allah. And most of those people, it's not like they have tawakkul, it's because they beg other people. Right? I was in Jordan one time, I shouldn't have mentioned the country, but we were in the masjid, some of our brothers, somebody came in and it was yelling, Allah, Allah, So one of the brothers told him, you okay, akhi? He goes, I have child and this, I have 4 kids and this, and I need money, and Allah will give me, and I know Allah will give me. So the brothers were like, let's give him. I told him, no, let him live it, let him walk the walk, walk away. Tell him, here's the Qibla, ask Allah, khalas. And then he was looking at us like, yeah, don't say one thing and you mean that, oh brothers give me, and then you're saying tawakkul. No. Right? Go out. I told the brother, look, you're young, you can go work. I have a friend who has a store, I'll get you a job. No brother, I'm busy. What are you busy with? No, tawakkul in its place. You do your best and then have tawakkul ala Allah. And he has the hadith, and I'm not going to get into it about the camel and tying and so on, but we know this concept, inshallah. May Allah make us from the people of the wasat, the middle path, the people of the Quran and the Sunnah who understand these concepts in their right place and follow them. So in this beautiful hadith, Ukasha radiallahu anhu, he says in one of the hadith, أَأَنَا مِنْهُمْ, am I from them? Another hadith, another narration, he asked Rasulullah to make dua that Allah makes me from them. But in the end, Rasulullah said, yes, you're from them. So subhanallah, we can testify today, we can take qasam today, that Ukasha radiallahu anhu will enter Jannah without hisab. Allahu Akbar. What a beautiful thing. You can't buy that. All the money in the world, all the power in the world, you can't buy that glad tidings. But we can testify, no doubt, he will enter Jannah without hisab, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and these are sahih ahadith through multiple chains, where he said he is from them. Another Sahabi here, he wanted to jump on the same bandwagon and go, what about me, Rasulullah? Am I from them? He said, Sabaqaka Ukasha. Ukasha has superseded you. Okay? Now, when we look at this hadith, many people misunderstand this hadith to mean that this was just like the right time and right, like he just said it first so he got it. No. Ukasha radiallahu anhu was that caliber of person that he entered that blessed group of entering Jannah without hisab. And that's my problem, the people don't know much about him. Other than this hadith, most people don't know much about him. So I'm going to discuss his life very briefly. Ukasha radiallahu anhu, he became Muslim before the hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from Mecca to Medina. Qais bint Mihsan, who is the sister of Ukasha bin Mihsan. This is his sister. She describes her brother. In a beautiful hadith, she talks about he was a handsome man and a commanding man with good akhlaq and good mannerisms. But she also describes him saying that he was 24 years old when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away. And that's a very interesting thing, because if we do our math backwards, then we know that Nabuwa came and Rasulullah had the 23 years of the Quran was revealed. So if he was 24 at the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that means he was around 1 year of age when Rasulullah's first wahi came. And when he became Muslim before the hijrah, we know that he made hijrah in the third group that went to Medina with Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu. So that means that he was a young child when he accepted Islam. And we know he was from the early Muslims, as was his brother and his sister. And his sister Qais, she has narrated a lot of hadith, and she lived a very long life, and she taught a lot of things to the Muslim ummah. She is somebody who did a big service for the ummah herself. But her and her brother and Ukasha radiallahu anhu, at a very young age, they accepted Islam and they made the hijrah. And Ukasha radiallahu anhu, he used to be at the side of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam when he was in Medina. And he participated in the battles. As his sister mentioned, that he was in Badr, he was in Uhud, he was in many of the early battles of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. There is a very beautiful narration, and because it's a narration that I wanted to quote, I did some research on it. Ibn Ishaq has mentioned it. Ibn Hisham, his student, has also reported it. Ibn Kathir has it in Bidayah wa Nihaya. Al-Dhahabi mentions it in Siyar Alam al-Nubala, but he mentions that this is from Ibn Ishaq without a sanad, mursalan. Al-Bayhaqi has relied upon it in Dalal al-Nabuwa. Qadi Iyad has mentioned in Shifa. Abu Nu'aym also in his Dalal al-Nabuwa. And Ibn Abdul Barr has also reported it. It has come through a chain, through Al-Waqidi in his Maghazi, but because he's matruk, we're not going to rely on that one. Al-Mubarak Puri has mentioned it in Al-Rahiq. What we can say is that at best we can say that Ibn Ishaq has mentioned it, mursala. But due to there being many shawahid for it, there is an asal to it. Even though we cannot find a single chain that is perfectly connected, that is authentic, but there is an asal. And as I've mentioned, so many of the books that have reported it. And this is about the Battle of Badr. And during the Battle of Badr, Ukasha radiallahu anhu, he participated in Badr, and he was fighting, and his sword broke. And he was fighting so much, his sword broke. So he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he mentioned to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, my sword broke. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam broke off a branch of a tree and handed it to him, and told him, try this. Now, that's something, you'd be like, what's the branch of a tree? It's wood, But as he mentions, when he swung it, it became a sword. And that's why Al-Bayhaqi and Abu Nu'aym and others have mentioned this from the miracles of the Prophet ﷺ. And as it became a sword, as other ulama of tariq have mentioned, that he used it during the battle, a metal, it became a full, big, shiny, strong sword. And after the battle, it was still firm and strong and sharp. And he kept it and he used it in battles later. And the Sahaba would see the sword and they would call it Al-Aun or Al-Qawi, the nusra or the help that came from Allah, or the strong, the support that came. And they gave it that name because it was a miraculous thing that happened. We know that, as I mentioned, Ukasha radiallahu anhu was a Badri Sahabi. And the Sahaba from Badr have a special rank as it is. As you know from the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam, where he asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam about the Sahaba that were in Badr, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that they are the best amongst us. Amongst the Sahaba, you have a ranking. Yeah? Like you have Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, the Khulafa, you have the Ashara Mubashara, they were given the glad tidings of Jannah in one particular hadith. Even though we know Ukasha radiallahu anhu also given the glad tidings of Jannah in this hadith, but he's not from the 10. Yeah? But the Sahaba of Badr, in general, the 313 of them were the best amongst the Sahaba. They are the highest valued. And he is from them. And Jibreel alayhi said that this is the same for the Malaika. Amongst the angels, there are those with higher rank. Jibreel alayhi salam, Mikail alayhi salam, Malik al-Maut, Israfil alayhi salam, so on. These are Malaika that have high ranks. Right? But with them, the best of the Malaika are who? The ones that were in Badr. So Ukasha radiallahu anhu is from the Badri Sahaba radiallahu anhu. Ukasha radiallahu anhu, he continued to serve the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He served under Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and there is a narration, and I'm going to mention this to warn against it, because again, I know one thing is people just like to hear a good story, but I'm not a storyteller. We're here to educate the ummah in the light of authentic evidences. Yeah? In Majma' Zawaid, there is a narration that mentioned that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he came out a few days before his death and he told the Sahaba, is there anybody I've wronged? If I owe anybody, have I conveyed the message and so on? And Ukasha radiallahu anhu, according to this narration, said, O Messenger of Allah, one time I was following you closely, and close, and then you hit me with a stick. So Rasulullah, so I want qisas from you. A'udhu billah, right? And many of our brothers who come, the little book, that anyway, they mention this as it's in that book, And then they say that Bilal radiyan went to the house of Fatima radiyanha and asked for a stick to be brought, and she was like, why? And he said, because Ukasha wants qisas against your father, and she said, put Hassan Hussein in front, all this. And then when he came, he told Rasulullah, oh, my shirt was empty, it was open when you hit me, so Rasulullah opened his shirt, then he went and he kissed Rasulullah and so on. Yeah? But this is mawdu'. And again, if you look, Darqutni has mentioned that Abdul Mun'im ibn Idris ibn Sinan is a rawi in the Sanad, and he's matruk. Ahmad ibn Hanbal said, Kana yakdhab, he used to lie. Al-Dhahabi quoted the same, Ibn Adi. Others have mentioned the narrators that are kadhab, that are liars, and then the break in the chain on top of that, and so on. In fact, if you want, Ibn Jawzi has mawdu'at, where he put together the hadith to warn against that are mawdu'. This is in it. And As-Suyuti and others have mentioned this to be mawdu' as well, fabrication. And even though it's all over YouTube and many bayans and so quote it, but this is a lie. Because there's the lie in the chain and the breaks in the chain and so on and so on. So we can't just go with it just because it sounds good. No, we have to stick to that which is authentic. Yeah? And Ukasha radiallahu anhu is a great Sahabi who has so many authentic, great things like the Haytham al-Bukhari and so on. Why go to these kinds of things? So, those things that are not authentic, we're going to put them aside, we're going to warn against them. But what is authentic? Is that even after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he continued to fight jihad fi sabilillah, qital and fight and so on. And then there were the battles with the apostates, hurub ridda. And these were, and again, I was listening to a brother sent me a clip from a speaker who said that he died fighting Musaylim al-Kadhab, and that's actually incorrect. These were many battles. And the battle that happened with Hadiqat al-Maut and so on was one battle, but it wasn't just one battle, it happened, there were many. And the battle that he was fighting against was not against Musaylim al-Kadhab, but there was Tulayha, and this is a Tulayha ibn Khuwaylid al-Azdi. Tulayha, he was another one of those kadhab that claimed prophethood, not Musaylim al-Kadhab. Yeah? As we're talking about Unsi and other qabail that had their own, this is one of them. And in the battle against them, in what the area today is close to where Hail in Saudi Arabia is. In this area, Tulayha and his people, they claimed that he was a prophet. And he was somebody like Musaylim al-Kadhab, who had seemingly accepted Islam in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, made some false claims, and then at the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they saw that opportunity, and they thought, they could come out and this is very interesting because before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the history of the Arab, you didn't have anybody that claimed prophethood. This is one of the signs that this was a true prophet. It's not like he was imitating. But after him, many people tried and they all failed. They all tried to write something like the Quran as Musaylim al-Kadhab's poetry, which was all laughed at. And that shows the truthfulness of the Quran and the truthfulness of the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as it spread around the world. People saw the truth in it. Tulayha, he also made this claim, and from the armies that went to fight him was Khalid ibn al-Walid, and with him was who? Ukasha radiallahu anhu. And Tulayha was actually a good fighter. This is something you need to give everybody. He was known amongst the Arab to be a strong fighter. And he had made an oath, very interesting, that if anybody ever calls out to fight me, I will fight them no matter what. He's got this kind of gangster attitude, right? He said, look, whatever, if anybody ever, no matter who it is, if they call out, they want to fight, I'm going to fight. So when they were fighting the armies of the Muslims, of course, in the beginning there was all the difficulty and so on, but because they had this was their turf, right? They knew the land better. But Allah gave nusra to the Muslims started winning. Tulayha started running. When he started running, Ukasha called out to him. Said, me and you, one-on-one. Tulayha stopped, he remembered his oath, and he was Arab, and he had that honor. So he came back and he fought. And he killed Ukasha radiallahu anhu. Ukasha radiallahu anhu became a shaheed here. Yeah? And Tulayha, he escaped even though his army lost. Khalid al-Walid, he won. But he escaped to Syria and he took refuge in Syria. Now this was the end of the worldly life of Ukasha radiallahu anhu. And wallahi, he was successful. Why? I can take qasam on it. Why? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said he will be from those 70,000 that will enter Jannah without hisab. So whatever he left behind in wealth or didn't and enjoy and didn't doesn't matter. He was successful. But what's very interesting, as I was reading on this and listening and trying to understand for the dars, Tulayha, today we say radiallahu anhu. After he went to Syria and all of that, later on, when he saw that Islam was becoming dominant and he saw that this was the haqq, he came and he became Muslim. And when he became Muslim, many of the Sahaba were very skeptical of him. Because obviously he had claimed prophethood and he had killed Sahaba and he had run away and so on. And of course, everybody would be. But in Islam, we judge on the zahir. We don't look in people's hearts. We don't know. So when he came and he became Muslim, they accepted him. But Umar radiallahu anhu was very interesting hadith. Umar radiallahu anhu, after he became Muslim, he was in Medina, he came, he took his shahada. Umar radiallahu anhu told him, get away from me. I don't want to look at you. And this is interesting, sometimes, you feel like, okay, even if a Muslim does something really bad, you have to like hug him and be best friends. Not necessarily, right? And we don't cut off a Muslim for more than 3 days, meaning we don't stop speaking and so on, and except there are cases. But sometimes people have their own issues that they have to deal with, because he killed Ukasha, and Umar radiallahu anhu said, you killed one of the very valuable Sahaba, Ukasha, so how can I look at you? But subhanAllah, Tulayha had a very beautiful answer back. He told him, Ya Amir al-Mu'minin, oh leader of the believers, don't feel like this towards me. Because Allah knows I made my tawbah. And Allah knows what I did is wrong. But Allah is the most forgiving. And Allah honored Ukasha at my hand. He said, if Ukasha had killed me, I would have gone to the nar, to the hellfire, because I was on kufr. But because he died at my hand, he will go to Jannah. He's from the shuhada. And then Allah blessed me that I'm Muslim today, and I hope from Allah that I will enter Jannah too. So in the end, this is the best. So don't have ill feelings towards me. Whatever I did in the past, I ask Allah for forgiveness, don't hold it against me. And Umar radiallahu, he got affected by this. And he forgave him. And he said, okay. And he put him in the army, in the Muslim army. And Tulayha actually fought really well. And a sign that he was true in his tawbah and his accepting of Islam. And interestingly, by the way, he would speak about Ukasha and his bravery and how he was affected. One of the things that opened his heart to Islam was the firmness of Ukasha radiallahu anhu in Islam. So Tulayha, later on, when the Muslims went to fight the Persians, he was in the army. And at Qadisiyah, at a very critical battle, which all of you have heard about, we've discussed it many times, where the Muslims were stuck. And there was a river between them and the Persians, the Majus, the fire worshippers. When there was that river between them, and the Muslims were on this side, and the fire worshipping shayateen, they were afraid to fight the Muslims, so they broke the bridges and burnt the boats. And here Ubayd bin Jarrah and Sa'd ibn Waqas and other Sahaba, Sa'd ibn Waqas actually in this battle, he told the Sahaba, has anybody committed a major sin? And they said no. Then he said, okay, we're going to go across the water. So he was in that army. And when they were asked, have you committed a major sin? He was from those that said no. At that time, some of the Sahaba were worried about him. They were like, okay, we're ready to go into this battle, tawakkul, in a very, we're going to cross over a river against this means and all of that. But if there is a one amongst us who in his heart still has kufr, then we're afraid the nusra of Allah won't come. So they said, let's watch him and there was a few others at night. And they saw that they were the greatest in the ibadah amongst the army. So after that, they said, no, we're good with him. We see that he is sincere, and he was from those people that miraculously crossed that river. So we hope from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that his tawbah was sincere. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless these Sahaba as examples for us, and bless them with shahada, with being martyrs, and bless them with glad tidings that we cannot have today. And today we cannot be sure who's in Jannah. Today we say this is a wali of Allah. Allah knows best. Allah knows the hearts. But these Sahaba who the Rasul ﷺ gave the glad tidings for, we can testify they will be in Jannah. Bilal radiallahu anhu, Bakr radiallahu anhu, Umar radiallahu anhu, Uthman, Ali, Abdurrahman bin Auf, the Ashara Mubashara, Aisha, Khadija radiallahu anhu. They were given this glad tidings. So what is upon us? To follow their footsteps, to follow their lifestyle. First, how? To learn them. And that's what we're doing here. And inshallah, every Saturday we'll have. First, to learn about them. And second, to bring that into our life. Wa jazakumullahu khair.